In recent times, there has been an explosive rise in the popularity of podcasts. This worldwide phenomenon has garnered a following of over 460 million podcast enthusiasts globally. Inspired by the recent trend, my team and I sought to produce our own podcast by consulting local seasoned podcasters. First, we talked to Gary Tan. He has been podcasting since 2015, and his current podcast, Not Again, started in 2017. So, with his years of experience, we wanted to know his perspective.
Initially, it was just in a very business sense. I try to do stand-up comedy on the. That's why I reach out to comedians as a way to like, hey, I'm here. I can be a comic as well. This is my set, right? The other direction is because I was in a very bad stage in my life at that point of time. So generally, I want to ask and seek for help, but I'm too poor to get therapy. but yeah, this is why I try to get to people with like-mindedness. So my podcast is based around on who I was interested at that point of time. Like I always look for something interesting, like a good story to share. Right? It's always about stories. It's always about like knowing someone. It's about always just trying to like who he is as a person. Podcast has become another medium. You have influencers coming in. You have your radio DJs coming in. It has very low. It's logistically speaking very low, right? 2 mics, 3 mics, 1 recorder. You're done, right? Currently right now there's a lot of content out there. I do not know how to put it nicely. Where it sometimes or a lot of times where it's just content that it's like a filler content, and a lot of people want that filler content. So I think that's the reason why it's booming. Everyone can be a podcaster.
Next, we talked to Nabil, who started his podcast Abro What's Up 2 years ago. Although he is relatively newer to the scene, we thought he could lend some valuable insights on producing podcasts and why they are so popular amongst the younger generation.
The first podcast that I listened to, the first ever podcast I listened to was Okay Let's Go. And that was in 2019 when they first started, when I was in Sec 4, and I enjoyed the feeling of listening to someone. It's like, when you're alone, but at the same time you want a conversation. I've always been interested in content creation. I feel like the content creation with video, right, is very laborious. Podcast simple. You speak, you don't need to show anything, and that's the product you deliver. And I think that's what pulled me to do podcasting. Honestly speaking, sometimes we go into a podcast recording session with no topic in mind. We will meet up. A podcast session will only last about 45 minutes to 1 hour, but we will hang out for 5 hours. The first 3 hours is us thinking of what to talk about, and then whatever things that happened recently that is interesting to us. So we talk about that through the podcast. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, when I do a podcast, each episode serves to entertain, be relatable, and also easy on the listener. I want my podcast to be an avenue for people when they listen, right? It's for them to forget about all the other ridiculous things that they're going through, they're reading on the news, right? And just have a conversation with a friend. And also at the same time, if they are able to learn one thing or two, because sometimes the one that listens to our podcast are younger than us, maybe 15, 16. We don't directly give advice, but through our stories, maybe they can learn a thing or two on how to adapt to different situations when they reach that stage in their life. I think it's very easy for podcasts to be out there, and it's a way of people to get their opinions heard, and you can just upload your opinions there. And if it's controversial enough or it's very popular, there might be traction onto your video or on your podcast recording. So I think that's why a lot of people are starting to do podcasts.
After all the advice and the insights gained from the seasoned podcasters, we decided to go ahead and produce our own podcasts. After the recording session, we wanted to see how potential listeners might react to our podcasts.
So what will the public think? Will our podcast be a hit? Thank you for joining us. So I'll just be showing you this recent podcast episode from the Alpha Male podcast. So all you have to do is just like tell us what you think about it lah.
You know what's the difference between male and females? If male cheats, right, it's not nearly as bad when a female does it.
Yeah.
Because you know females, when they cheat, there's emotions involved. They have to like the fucking guy. But if male cheats, right, like we can fuck any girl we want and just leave her.
Here's my hot take, guys. Single mothers should be for recreational use only.
Damn. Is it because of like the baggage of kids?
It's just too risky for me, lah. You know, it's a proven fact that marriage is really terrible for men in general. Then imagine if you put kids into the equation, kids that you have to provide for, that aren't even your fucking seed.
I feel that girls nowadays deserve less. Like it's so easy to be girl nowadays, what? Oh, got feminism.
Yeah.
Oh, cannot be misogynistic also.
Yeah.
Like they got more rights and privileges than guys now.
To me, right, chivalry is dead, and fucking females killed it. The days of being a nice guy, right, just doesn't work anymore. That's why I'm saying these bitches deserve less.
You know what's so attractive about these younger females?
What?
It's not their fertility, it's not their looks, right? It's none of that. Guys have it wrong.
Yeah, like you know nowadays, right? Okay, if I meet a girl that's like 30 plus, she's still single, I know like a lot of guys try her before. I know she gonna fuck a lot of times already. Like it's not attractive lah, and I also don't want that.
Yes,
yeah.
You know, to be frank, right, like if I get together with a 19-year-old, then I'm gonna be like what, dude numbers 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Then if I'm with a 33-year-old, I'm gonna be dude what, 29?
Yeah.
Fuck that, bro.
So what are your impressions about this podcast?
Was that satire or is that like legit?
I thought maybe okay, they're just guys talking, but to discuss something so sensitive, so openly, and especially without any woman present, I think that's also an important point.
I think that it's a very sort of select group of people that have quite a sort of controversial opinion, shall we say, on feminism and, you know, what it means to be a man in today's world. I think that they're not exactly correct.
People tend to debase women if they're usually not getting women or like interacting well with them.
This podcast is being given by older guys. So young men might get influenced or they might think that whatever that they have experienced might apply to them in the future as well, which is not very healthy lah.
Those like young people, they shouldn't be watching this, like less than 15 or yeah, around there. If they watch already, their mind kind of brainwashed into thinking this thing or thing correct, then they will grow up to become like anyhow person.
Do you think that it's the podcaster's responsibilities in terms of like forming the content, or is it like the viewer's responsibility to kind of like filter out what's good, what's bad?
I think the answer is both, and like not just podcasters, but like content creators in general, because you have like a wide reach and whatever, and then again, there's like that moral responsibility, like what kind of society do you want to build because of your content?
As an individual who listens to all these kind of podcasts, you have to filter out what is right for you and what is not right for you.
I think it falls on the viewers, because you have the right to view whatever you want. When the people podcast, they don't have the right to broadcast the political right answer. It's about your brain, how you go and process the information.
Well, I mean, in this day and age of like free speech and everything, I think that unfortunately people are entitled to post whatever they want. It's just like a sort of matter of, you know, like people playing that podcast and then, you know, like disagreeing and saying so and like feeling free to just discontinue watching it. Like, you know, even if the content is completely, you know, ludicrous and idiotic, like it's still within their rights to post it.
It's always both, right? But I think it depends how they're pushing out their content also. If they're pushing out in like a way that to them, so-called, right, that you think is appropriate for older audiences, maybe I would say you can push this content out.
If viewers, they are very against these kind of things, right? This podcast won't even come out in the first place.
We started this project to understand podcasters, but talking to the public made us realize maybe we need to start understanding the audience too.
My name is Ghazali Muzakir, and I am a drama educator. I'm also the founder of the Singapore Male Allyship Network, SGMAN for short. And what we do at SGMAN is that we learn together how to be better men. Let me explain a little bit like why SGMAN also came about, because that happened in 2020. There was a few things that happened that time, right? There was the podcast, right? Our local podcast, right? That were they had a history of misogynistic comments, content as well, and there was a war that was happening online, right? And the way I observed it was that it was between the fans of the podcast versus women's rights group, right? And as I observed how they were discussing, if you can call it, or argue about the content, the conversations were conflated, right? And they conflate artistry integrity with harassment, right? And that's when I started to say, hey, what is needed here? You know, and people are not communicating constructively. There's a lot of violent language being used, and there's a lot of dismissal, not hearing each other as well. And that's when I started to see, like, okay, how can I help? You know, what can I contribute to this conversation?
I think that being everyone throws the word around like it means nothing anymore. Okay, let's go. It's a podcast where the whole controversy because some guy talk about breasts with a sex worker. It's very controversial for those guys to say, hey, about the boobs, right? But you have Halimah Yacob that stands out and say, hey, I think it's wrong for her to stand out. I think it's a very manipulative move for her to stand out. And I don't think that the guy in those three should really apologize, because it doesn't seem like they are apologizing for the right reasons, right? If they really feel bad about like saying it out, why do they even put it in the first place, right? And people will complain about it, and people will, of course, and that bring them traffic.
I've listened to Okay Let's Go since 2019, right? So I followed through all their content. So of course, not every content is filled with misogyny, but when you listen to them, it's actually very relatable, and it's sometimes really things that you will hear outside. People outside, when you talk to maybe pachi or certain group of friends, right? When a girl walks past, you'll be like, salah, pretty sia the leg, or she look pretty sia, that kind of thing. So it's really happening outside, but they bring it into a public podcast setting. So of course, when people listen to that on the podcast, they'll be like, this is not right. Why are they encouraging this kind of behavior? But is it encouraging, or are they just, bringing to light the conversations we are already having? Yeah. I think I've been brought up in a way where saying this kind of comments, right? Even in a private setting, I feel uncomfortable saying that. And luckily for myself, the host that I have on the podcast, right, they also feel the same way as me. So it is very natural for us to go out on the podcast and not say this kind of comments, or talk about women in a very derogatory way.
I don't think anyone, or I don't think they come in with the intention, I'm going to be misogynistic. They believe what they did was normal. They believe that is what is okay. Until something big happened and say, hey, that's not okay. Right? So I don't think anybody would come in like, hey, I purposely want to do this, As a teacher, what worries me was that my students are mentioning and they are consuming their content, right? What we can do is just give feedback, say, hey, these voices should lower, okay? Or maybe educate them and say, hey, this is not right, okay? And hopefully they will stop and be careful of their words, be careful of their behavior in the future. But also, sadly, what I am finding is that there is a gap, there is a lack of the other voices, the healthier ones. And they do exist. I've met many guys and we have conversations. It's like, wow, I wish your thoughts, I wish your views can be shared with the world as well. But those voices are usually quieter. And the more people say like, hey, this is bad, and say, hey, what's so bad? And the people will watch, and the people will consume. And I think, we're talking about information technology here, we're talking about consuming information. I don't think we should cut the exposure, but however, we should address how people are processing the information.
We embarked on this journey to understand why and how podcasts have taken over the media landscape lately. For podcasters like Gary and Nabil, it is an easy and convenient medium that empowers them to reach their audiences, be their authentic selves, and start conversations. Perhaps this explains the staggering 5 million podcasts out there globally. Still, there is a good reason to feel threatened by the increasing popularity of certain podcasters, especially as they shape the minds of young men who are struggling under society's expectations of them, who have not yet learned the ability to regulate their emotions, making them susceptible to the influence of these personalities and the rhetoric they spread. Like Ghazali says, the solution may not be as easy as banning and silencing these podcasters. Sure, we can try to ask them to be more aware of their harmful words and to censor themselves. But with how easy it is to set up a podcast, and in an era that rewards rage-baked content, for every one alpha male we shoot down, 2 more will grow. Perhaps it's time to look at the long term, and to do this, we must accept the duty of the listener to process the content they consume and to spread responsibly. Beyond podcasts, the pressing question as a society is, how can we help young men feel heard, without the sexist jokes under the guise of honesty, without the audio mixes, and without the microphones?